Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Mint One. I'm your host, Tyson. If you're new to the channel, please check us out and subscribe and share this to anybody who loves the entertainment industry. We do movie reviews, trailer reactions, talk about any entertainment news that gets announced. We do all that and more here on the channel, so please stick around if you enjoy it. And today we're going to be talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania in a spoiler-heavy discussion. It's the newest MCU film. It is very divisive. But we're going to talk about all the good and the bad here on Mint One. Alright, so the new Ant-Man film is out in theater, Quantumania. And it is going, well, not as good, I don't think, as the MCU hoped. Right now it is sitting at a 48% on Rotten Tomatoes, the second lowest score ever to be received for an MCU film. Only Eternals is behind it. And, well, for an audience score, it's doing pretty good. It's at a B for cinema score and an 84% here on Rotten Tomatoes. And I myself, how did I like the film? Well, I'd probably say it was disappointing, but 6 out of 10 is what I would give it. Very disappointed with how this film went. I expected a lot from this movie, but let's get into some of the details here of the film. And let's start off with the biggest positive, and for me, that is Jonathan Majors as Kang. He pulls off this performance. Wow. I mean, when he was on screen, he was intense. He got me scared a little bit for the future of some characters. He was menacing at most of the parts of the film. I thought he delivered the best performance out of this movie, and I was really excited to see his menacing take on this character. We saw him a little bit in the Loki series as He Who Remains, but this was our first time seeing him as Kang the Conqueror. It will not be our last, and I thought he did a fantastic job with everything he was given, and was definitely the best part of this movie. He does kill it. I will say that the acting by all of the other cast was on point. I thought it was brilliant. I thought Paul Rudd actually did a fantastic job as Scott Lang here. Now, the character arc of all the other characters didn't really feel so great on. The Wasp, it's called Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. Didn't really feel like we got much of her. And Cassie Lang actually was a surprise to me. I didn't really know how to feel about her character. I was worried she was going to kind of be a little annoying, but she was actually the second best character to me in this movie. She was pretty damn good. Now, Michelle Pfeiffer's character was kind of more front and center of this movie, which was good. I just felt it was kind of rushed a little bit. I wish it would have had a little bit more drawn out with her, Janet Van Dyne, but we didn't get that. But we got her and Kang actually starting off the movie. So we see Janet in the quantum realm, and then we see Kang actually. We see how he got there, and Janet goes to see if everything's all right, to see who this person is, and we see Kang asking like, "Where am I?" And then the whole title scene of the Marvel logo starts. So that was actually a pretty cool way to kick off. Just a couple seconds there with those two on the screen, but I thought that was a really cool, intense way of kicking off this movie. And then we get into Scott kind of doing like a voiceover. Actually, we find out he's reading from his own book he wrote about saving the world in Avengers Endgame. Was actually kind of funny. It was a funny way to start off. I liked that voiceover montage. But then we get into he's doing signings for his book, and he gets a phone call. Cassie, she's in jail and she needs to be broken out, and we find out that she was at a protest and she's trying to do her she's trying to do what she sees as right. She's trying to save the world one step at a time as much as she can do, and she doesn't think her father is really doing that anymore. So we see a conflict between Scott and Cassie, which I thought was actually a cool aspect of the story. I thought that was a cool way to go to explore these characters and give them a source of conflict with how they're spending their time. Scott, who has these powers to help the world, you have Cassie feeling that he's not doing what as much as he could be doing right now. He's just reliving in the past, reliving saving the universe. So we find out that she's working with Hank and Hope as well to do kind of build this quantum realm device that shoots signals down to the quantum realm so they can kind of get a map of how the quantum realm looks. And that's where the problem begins. That's where they all get sucked in to the quantum realm. We see them actually when they get sucked in, they get split off into groups. We have Scott and Cassie over here, and then we have Hank, Janet, and Hope as well being split off. Janet is not thrilled about them exploring the quantum realm in the first place because of all these complications. However, we find out she does not tell them anything about her time in the quantum realm. She says it's too painful. She just really doesn't want them to know about anything down there. But we find out she's going to have to tell them with the predicament they find themselves in. And that's where we kind of meet Bill Murray's character right away. I was not a fan of that interaction at all in this movie. I didn't really care. Apparently, him and Janet had some sort of relationship when she was down there in the quantum realm. He was good. He was against Kang, and so was she. They were fighting with the rebellion, and then all of a sudden we see that he now works for Kang, and he's trying to turn them in. That doesn't work out for him, and then they escape that, and that's the end of Bill Murray's character in this movie. Fine, whatever. Wasn't a big fan of that segment at all. And then we have Scott and Cassie meeting the villagers, the rebellion, as I would say, of the quantum realm, the people who actually lived there before Kang took over and built his whole fortress and everything on their home, on where they lived. So they're trying to fight against Kang, and we see that interaction go down with some just weird characters. Again, I didn't think that was explored well at all. I thought the writing with the characters we do get introduced to in the village were it just didn't seem important to me. I didn't care. I really didn't care about them at all. I didn't care about their cause or anything like that. And then we kind of get introduced to Modoc pretty soon afterwards, and I was really, really excited to see Modoc. I was thrilled about Modoc coming into the MCU, and I thought he looked great. He even looked great in the movie when his face was not shown. And then he opens his mask or whatever, and we see Darren Cross, Yellow Jacket, coming back from the first Ant-Man. He is now Modoc. That was not in the comics. They added that in the movie, which I was fine with. I liked the character of Darren Cross. I was excited. I had a feeling he was going to be Modoc. There were rumors of that before the movie came out. So I expected that going in, and when that happened, I was like, all right, that's cool. But what's up with the face? I mean, when the mask was off, it was just too zoomed in. It didn't look like it. I don't know how that got the final, okay, this looks good to be put out. It did not look good at all. Took me out of the movie. It was a huge disappointment. And even some of the jokes that were made towards MODOK and how he has that like redemption arc at the end of this movie, it was okay, but it just wasn't what I wanted MODOK to be. I didn't feel like he was a killing machine like he's supposed to be. He was okay in the movie. I mean, some of the action he was given was fine, but I just felt underwhelmed by his presence in this film. So that was very disappointing to see. But I was disappointed a lot in this movie. I mean, the whole first two acts to me were kind of rough. I felt they were dragged out. So we get to the point of where Scott and Cassie are captured and are brought to Kang. And this is where, probably one of my favorite parts of the movie is we see the first interaction between Kang and Ant-Man. He goes, so you're an Avenger. Have I killed you before? Are you the one with the hammer, alluding to Thor, and possibly has he killed Thor before? I thought that dialogue was really good. You could tell in Scott's eyes that he was terrified of Kang. He didn't know who this guy was, but he knew who Avengers were. He knew a lot about the things that Scott knows about, so he was threatened, I felt. And I would be too if I was in that situation. So he ends up making a deal with Scott. And this is where this huge power source comes in. It's how he can get out of the quantum realm. So we see in this flashback that Janet actually helped Kang get this power source going and was just about ready to let him out of the quantum realm when she put her hands on it, and she could see what Kang was about, what he had done, and what he was going to do. And it was a lot of, destruction, murder, chaos, all that stuff. And she ended up destroying it and trapping Kang there as well as herself. And so we see that he tasked Ant-Man, he tasked Scott with going back, shrinking this back down to its original size in order for Kang to escape, and in return, he will let Cassie go and he won't harm Cassie. So that is why Scott actually ends up doing that. He goes and this is like where I really like the film. So Scott goes, and then all of a sudden he's in this like area where all of a sudden all of his variants just start popping out. There's a lot of Ant-Mans, and there's this one really cool Baskin Robbins Scott Lang there as well, which is pretty funny. It was one of the moments I chuckled most in the film. So we see that whole interaction. We see a little bit of that in the trailer. That's when like the giant Ant-Man that gets peeling away and everything like that. And that was a really cool moment. And I thought it was visually stunning in this film. I thought it was my favorite visual aspect of the film was that scene. And so he ends up getting it, shrinking it down, bringing it to Kang, and then Kang goes back on his words and said, "Nah, Cassie will be fine without you." And then that's when he starts to show his true colors, that he's not a man of his word. And then we get into the third act where, Scott's like, all right, I'm going to go get my daughter back from him. And then, that's when we'll get back to the scene now where you see in the trailer, King's all blue, points his hands out, lasers coming out. And then Hank Pym comes, has all these giant ants coming, just like I said, attack Kang, and end up bringing him back into the fortress. And we think that's it. Like that those big ants really could take out this powerful Kang. It was disappointing to me to see that's what happened in this film. It made Kang feel like a quirky character, that this would happen to him when he's all powerful and he knows how time works, and you see how menacing he can be, but all these ants can overpower him like that. Whatever. Took me out of the movie, didn't like it. So then after that happens, we see Michelle Pfeiffer with the power source trying to get it so they can go back to Earth. So it's like a gateway from Quantum Realm back to Earth. So they get it done, all of them go through, and then it's just Scott left, and then that's when Kang shows back up from the ant attack and starts to just beat the shit out of Scott. This was the best part to me in the movie. I loved this part. You see it in the trailer, which for me was kind of a surprise they put this in the trailer. I didn't love that at all. But it's like the famous line of where I don't have to win, we just have to lose, or something along those lines. We just both have to lose. That's a really cool scene. You see Scott knowing, so this portal's opened up to Earth. Kang knows this is his one shot to get back there. So he tries to run through the portal. That's where Ant-Man dives on in, and that's where the attack starts. And Kang's just beating him. And after a couple minutes of doing that, he's done, and he makes a run for the portal again. And that's when Wasp comes back out, helps Ant-Man defeat Kang. They realize the only way to do that is potentially to trap themselves in the quantum realm. They hold him up against the power source, then start beating him, and that's actually when the power source starts to suck. It sucks Kang in or something like that, and that's how Kang's defeated. And then the portal from Earth is closed, and we see them stuck in the quantum realm. And I was like, okay, that's actually a cool way to leave Hope and Scott, is to be stuck in the quantum realm. But then a little bit later, just like a couple seconds after that's closed, Scott's like, let's go home. And then boom, the portal opens back up because of Cassie's device that she made earlier in the film. It creates a signal, whatever, and then opens up the portal, and they go back and they're home. That's basically the end of the movie. It was very, I don't know, I just didn't like that ending. I wanted them to kind of be stuck in the quantum realm. I feel like that would have given this film more stakes, and I feel like that actually would have been a favorable ending to what actually happened. So at the end of the day, I would say this film didn't really take as many stakes as it looked like it would with the trailers. I would say that Jonathan Majors as Kang was the standout of this film, but Kang wasn't as menacing as we thought he would be. I still wanted more. And my worry out of this is, so Kang gets sucked in, but then the mid post credit scene is the Council of Kangs scene. And we see all of these Kangs, and three of the main Kangs are like looking out at the multiverse, kind of like all the timelines we see in Loki when it's like all the white lines and stuff, like we see that. That's what they're looking at. And so they're looking out at that, and then the camera then pans to this whole room filled with all of these different variants of Kang, which is cool. But I'm like, all right, so in the next movie or Kang Dynasty, is it going to be just another Kang that we see? Or is it going to be this Kang that we see from Quantumania? And I hope it's this Kang we see from Quantumania, because, this is the first introduction of Kang. This is kind of the one we're now connected with, and it'd be cool to see his arc continue, especially because we know this character now. If it's just another Kang, I feel like it's not going to be really, we're not going to feel connected to him. So I hope they go with the same Kang. I hope he's actually not gone because I think there's a lot of potential still for this Kang that we saw. But I feel like they might just introduce a new one in Kang Dynasty or in a film before then that we see Kang in. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in Loki season 2, which is now the second post credit scene. Is a little sneak peek of that. We see Loki and Owen Wilson's character at some sort of uh, like event or something like that that this man who discovered time and knows something about time is presenting, and it ends up being Jonathan Majors Kang. And it's funny because Owen Wilson's like, "Oh, that man doesn't look as terrifying as you let him out to be," and Loki's like, "Well, trust me, he is." And then that's the end of that scene. So yeah, the end of credit scenes were cool, but they were disappointing too. They didn't really lead too much. They weren't really that long either. I would have liked just a little bit longer into that sneak peek of Loki season 2. But like I said, that's going to be coming out, I believe, this summer. So it'll be interesting to see how that tends to the Kang storyline, and it will be interesting to see where the MCU goes from here. Again, I thought that this film was going to be a huge setup for what the MCU was going to be happening in Phase 5 and even like Phase 6, what this next storyline was going to be. It did not feel like that at all. I felt like I don't know more about the MCU than I did before walking into this movie. I feel like that. So, I mean, if just for Kane you have to see this movie, I feel like, to see his character progression. Otherwise, you don't really have to see this movie, I feel like, to get where the future MCU is going, because not a lot happened in this movie that connected anything from Phase 4 or showed that this is a gateway into what's going to happen in Phase 5. I didn't feel any of that from this film, which was also one of the many disappointing factors. So I sadly feel like the MCU has lost its magic. I kind of felt this way out of the past 4 MCU films. Now I've walked out being like, well, it was okay. I haven't felt like an MCU movie is great. I haven't felt like that in a long time, which is very sad as somebody who loves the MCU. So where this film ranks in my whole MCU, I don't quite know yet, but this week I'm going to be posting a video ranking the entire MCU, including Quantumania, with my good friend Kelsey. So be on the lookout for that. It's coming on the channel very soon. And guys, that about does it for my Ant-Man the Wasp Quantumania spoiler review. Let me know what you guys thought of the movie down below. If you liked it, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm jealous of you. I wish I liked it too, but unfortunately, I couldn't come to terms with it. But let me know what you all thought down below. And until next time, guys, I'm Tyson Honecker, and I'll see you on the next one.